If your surname is on this list, you are not simply Irish. You are tied to a specific kingdom, a specific piece of land, a specific chieftain who fought for it, and in most cases, a specific catastrophe that either made your family or nearly wiped it out. 10 surnames, 10 bloodlines. And here is something worth knowing before we start. Ireland was doing this before almost anyone else in Europe. While most of the continent was still using single names, Irish families were already handing a name down, father to son, over 1,000 years ago. That O in front of an Irish name is not decoration. It means grandson of, descendant of. Mac means son of. So the name is a claim that you came from one particular man. And I want to be clear about something, because most videos get this wrong. These were not 10 kings. They were not interchangeable. One of these families were the men who ran other men's armies. One of them was driven into the mountains and stayed up there fighting for 400 years. One of them walked 1,000 of their own people across Ireland in the middle of winter. 35 of them arrived. Different families, different jobs, different endings. Stay until number 1. Because that name belongs to someone who did what no Irish king had ever managed, and no Irish king would ever manage again. And it killed him. On the day he did it. Number 10, Gallagher. In Irish, O Galchibhare. And the meaning is genuinely odd. It splits into Gall, foreign, and Cobhare, help, foreign help, the lover of foreigners, which sounds like a name for a diplomat. It was not. The Gallaghers came out of Tir Chonail, the old kingdom that is now Donegal, up in the far northwest where Ireland runs out of land. And they were not minor players there. The Gallaghers were the chief marshals of the O'Donnell kings. That is a very specific job. It means when the O'Donnells went to war, a Gallagher was the man organizing the fighting men, mustering them, positioning them. For centuries, they were the machinery of war in the north. So, foreign help, a family named for welcoming outsiders who spent 400 years commanding armies against them. Names lie sometimes. That is going to come up again. Now, the next one. It is one of the few Irish surnames whose meaning is openly hostile. Not brave, not noble. Hostile, and the man who carried it most famously burned an entire city and lost everything in under a year. Number 9. Doherty, o Dochatai, and the root dochatach means hurtful, obstructive, not a compliment. Nobody accidentally gets named that. The Dohertys ruled Inishowen, that huge wind-hammered peninsula at the very top of the island where the cliffs just drop into the Atlantic. They were lords of Inishowen. They held the northern edge of Ireland. And then, in 1608, a young chief called Cahir O'Doherty did something reckless and enormous. He rose against the English crown, and he burned Derry to the ground. He was dead within months. His lands were seized, and what followed was the plantation of Ulster, the settlement that reshaped the entire north of Ireland and whose consequences are still being argued about today. If you are a Doherty, your ancestors held the top of Ireland and lost it in one of the last great gambles of the Gaelic world. The name coming up next has a word hidden inside it that most Irish people never notice. It has been sitting there for 1,000 years. Once you hear it, you will not be able to unhear it. Number 8. Ryan, o Riain. Now look at that root. Ri. That is the Irish word for king. Ryan carries the word king inside it. Descendant of the little king. The Ryans came out of the old territory of Idrone and spread through Munster, Tipperary, Limerick, where you still cannot walk into a pub without meeting one. And they were stubborn. They held their ground through invasion after invasion, and they never produced a great high king or a famous dynasty. They just refused to disappear. Ryan is now one of the most common surnames in the country, which means the word king is sitting quietly inside hundreds of thousands of people who have never once thought about it. If your name is Ryan, it is inside yours. Quick word before we go on. If you are finding this useful, subscribe to Bloodline Atlas. Every week we take names apart and find the history hiding inside them. It is free, and it means you will not miss the next one. Right. Where were we? Because the next family did something that is almost hard to believe. They were kings, real kings. And when the Normans came and took the good land, they did not surrender and they did not scatter. They went up into the mountains, and they stayed there, fighting, for 400 years. Number 7, Byrne, Byrne, descendant of Bran. And Bran was not a myth. Bran MacMailmorda was a real king of Leinster, and he died in 1052. Here is what makes the Byrnes remarkable. When the Normans arrived, they pushed the Gaelic families off the rich flat land around Dublin. Most families broke, or bent, or made terms. The O'Byrnes went up into the Wicklow Mountains, and from those hills, for 4 centuries, they raided. Norman settlements, English settlements. Dublin itself lived nervously with the Wicklow Mountains sitting on its shoulder. In 1580, one of their chiefs, Fiach MacHugh O'Byrne, destroyed an English army at Glenmalure. Not defeated, destroyed. So if you are a Byrne, you come from people who were offered the choice between comfort and defiance and picked the mountains. Now, number 6. This one is going to apply to a lot of you. It is everywhere. Ireland, America, Australia. And most people carrying it have no idea it belonged to the ruling family of an actual kingdom. Number 6. Kelly, O Chelaig. And the root, Chelach, has been argued over by scholars for centuries. Some say bright-headed, others say strife, war. Either way, not a gentle word. The Kellys ruled Uí Main, and Uí Main was not a village. It was a substantial kingdom in Connaught, covering large parts of what is now Galway and Roscommon. The O'Chielai chiefs were among the great lords of the west of Ireland. Kelly is now one of the most common surnames in the country. Sit with that for a second. It means an enormous number of people walking around right now, probably including someone you know, are descended from the kings of Uí Main and have absolutely no idea. If your name is Kelly, that is you. The next one I want to tell you about properly, because the story attached to it is, without exaggeration, one of the most brutal things in Irish history, and almost nobody outside Ireland has heard it. Number 5. O'Sullivan, O'Suiliabain. Suil means eye, so the name means something close to the one-eyed man, or the hawk-eyed one. The O'Sullivans held the Beara Peninsula in the far southwest, mountains falling straight into the sea. And in 1602, after the Gaelic defeat at Kinsale, the English took their land. Their chief was Donald Cam O'Sullivan Bear. And with the winter coming, he gathered around 1,000 of his people, fighting men but also women, children, the old, and he marched them the length of Ireland, on foot, to find shelter in the north. 14 days, through snow, attacked almost the entire way. 1,000 people set out, 35 arrived, 35. If you are an O'Sullivan, that is where you come from. Not from the ones who died, from the ones who kept walking. Now, number 4, this is statistically the most likely name on this list to be yours. And its meaning is not subtle at all. It tells you exactly what your ancestors were doing and where they were doing it. Number 4, Murphy. O Murchada, break it apart. Muir, the sea. Cath, battle. Sea warrior, sea battler. Murphy is the single most common surname in Ireland. The family came out of Leinster, particularly Wexford, the coast that stared out at the Viking longships for 200 years. And that name was not handed out for nothing. In a country being raided from the water for 2 centuries, a family that ended up called Sea Warrior was a family that met the ships at the waterline. If your name is Murphy, and statistically a lot of you, your ancestors were named for what they did on a beach. The next 2 names are different from everything before them, because these families did not just rule a kingdom, they ruled the island. Number 3, O'Connor, O Conchobair, descendant of Conchobha, a name that means something like lover of hounds. The O'Connors were kings of Connaught. That alone would put them on this list. But they went further. 2 O'Connors became High King of all Ireland. And the last of them, Ruaidrí O Conchobair, Rory O'Connor, was the last native High King Ireland would ever have. He was on the throne in 1169 when the Normans landed. He fought them, he lost. And when he died, the old Gaelic High Kingship died with him. There has never been another, not once, not in 850 years. So if you are an O'Connor, your family was sitting on the highest seat in Ireland at the exact moment the country changed forever. And number 2, I have to warn you about this one. The symbol of this family is a severed red hand, and the story of how it got there is one of the most ruthless things I have ever come across. Number 2, O'Neill. O'Neill, descendant of Niall. They were kings of Tir Eogain, the heart of Ulster, and part of the enormous Uí Néill dynasty that dominated Ireland for centuries. You have seen their symbol, even if you never knew whose it was. The Red Hand of Ulster, an open red hand on white. The legend goes like this: 2 chieftains raced by boat toward the coast. Whoever touched the land first would rule it. One of them was losing, so he drew his sword and cut off his own hand and threw it onto the beach ahead of the other boat. He touched the land first. That is the story the family kept. Not hid, kept. Put on their banner, carried for 1,000 years, and their end is just as heavy. Their last great chief, Hugh O'Neill, fought a 9-year war against the English crown. And when he finally sailed out of Ireland in 1607, the Gaelic aristocracy went with him. They call it the Flight of the Earls. It is generally taken as the moment Gaelic Ireland stopped being a power and started being a memory. If you are an O'Neill, you carry one of the oldest recorded surnames in Europe, older than most European countries. And now, number 1. Number 1, O'Brien. O'Brien, descendant of Brian. And there is only one Brian this can be, Brian Boru. He was born a minor prince in a small Munster kingdom, no claim to greatness, no obvious path to it. And he did what nobody had truly done. He fought and bargained and simply outlasted every rival on the island until he was High King of Ireland. Not as a title, in fact, he broke the Viking grip on the country. And on Good Friday, in the year 1014, at Clontarf outside Dublin, his army met the Norse and their Irish allies in the most famous battle in Irish history. Brian's side won, but Brian was old by then, far too old to fight, so he stayed in his tent, praying while the battle went on without him. And a Norse warrior, fleeing the field, found the tent and killed him. He won. And he died in the hour he won. That is the man. That is the name. His descendants took it and carried it for 1,000 years. The O'Briens became kings of Thomond and held power in Munster longer than almost any Gaelic family in Ireland. If your name is O'Brien, you carry the name of the only man who ever truly united this island, and paid for it on the day he did it. So, 10 names, 10 kingdoms: Munster, Ulster, Connaught, Leinster, and here is the part I keep coming back to. Every single one of these names survived. Through the Normans, through plantation, through famine, through 1 million people leaving on ships and never coming back. The kingdoms are gone. The High Kingship is gone. The language nearly went with them. But the names walked out of Ireland in the pockets of the people who left. And they are still here. On your passport, on your front door, on the cup in your hand. Your surname outlived the kingdom that made it. Now, I want to hear from you. Put your surname in the comments and tell me where your family ended up. America, Australia, England, anywhere. And if you know the story your family carried out of Ireland, tell me that too. Those are worth hearing. The names that come up most, I will take apart in the next video. And if you made it all the way here with me, subscribe to Bloodline Atlas. Every week we pull a name apart and find the history sitting inside it. Your name is not just a name, it is a claim.